24 साल के इमामोलॉजी एक्सपीरियंस में मुझे सिखाया है कि 80% लोग गलत प्रोफेशन में अपने पोटेंशियल को बर्बाद कर देते हैं। आपने कभी सोचा कि कुछ लोग सेम मेहनत करते हुए भी एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी सक्सेस अचीव कर लेते हैं और कुछ लाइफ टाइम स्ट्रगल करते रहते हैं। ये सिर्फ किस्मत नहीं बल्कि कंप्लीट साइंस है। टॉप 5% सक्सेसफुल लोग
होगा when my growth percentage is negative, pattern will break on. When my growth percentage is negative, did India get negative growth rate from 5 to 15? Or has India witnessed negative growth rate since independence? There have been 3 or 4 instances in that year India got a negative growth rate. 1966-67, 1980. Then you again had negative growth rate in the pandemic. -2% was the growth rate. तो वहाँ पे आपका ये नंबर कम हो सकता है. And ऐसे इंस्टेंस पूरे 50 साल में 4 बार है. 75 years you only have 4. It also happened in 48, but we don't count 48 because we assume that Indian economic history starts from 51 when elections were conducted. 51 के बाद से there have been only 3 years. That definitely did not happen between 5 and 15, but that definitely happened between. Then the statement would have been wrong. But here, if negative growth rate did not happen, this statement would be. Is it clear? Why this question seems to be tricky because one is talking about growth percentage, the other is talking about absolute numbers. So this is clearly incorrect, but you can't follow the same logic here. तो तभी हो सकता है जब negative है. So definitely 7 to 6.5 आया होगा तो, but number terms में तो it has increased. Percentage is small, but still number wise it has increased. Therefore this statement is it has steadily increased, and numbers will show you that it's steadily increased. This is why the answer here is. Is it clear? 2. Things which we learned from this question is you need to understand the difference between growth percentage and nominal GDP. And second, whenever there is a trend-based question, you need to find the abnormal year, then try to solve the question because you won't be able to solve it through facts. Definitely you'll have the facts. But it's very difficult to solve this. But So this is your fact base कि how exactly the growth slows down. 14 there is you see 2008 this is the growth slope down steadily increasing. 6% के बीच में एक growth here is and now the steadily increase नहीं हुआ है 6 to 8% के बीच में एक growth here is green.
Sir, I would like to submit my resignation.
Seven to 6.5. That means this steadily increased pattern would have broken in an abnormal year. This is how you solve the trend-based question. Whenever you have a particular time frame, you try to know if there is an abnormality in one of the years in which they asked a question. For example, if the question would have been asked in 2025 and the time frame would be 15 to 25, do we have an abnormal year here? 16 में demonetization, 2007 GST, then a pandemic is from 19 to 21. So you might not get this. So this statement would then be, and we had 2008. You'll get it from the facts also. कि नहीं हुआ था ऐसा. But how to solve it in the exam without knowing the facts? Try to find the abnormality that has happened. The GDP at market price has steadily increased in the last decade. This was talking about growth percentages. This is talking about quantity into price. That means it is talking about monetary value. Now, how do you then solve this? So, if we had 10,000 GDP in 2005, what we are saying is every year the GDP has increased. Percentage growth nahi, but the nominal GDP. Right? Now, how probable this statement is? Or when will this pattern break? Is the question asking about inflation? ये pattern break कब होगा? When my growth percentage is negative. This pattern will break only when my growth percentage is negative. Did India get negative growth rate from 5 to 15? Or has India witnessed negative growth rate since independence? There have only 3 or 4 instances in that years India got a negative growth rate. 1966-67, 1980. Then you again had negative growth rate in the pandemic. -2% was the growth rate. तो वहाँ पे आपका ये number कम हो सकता है. And ऐसे instance पूरे 50 साल में 4 बार हैं. 75 years you only have 4. It also happened in 48, but we don't count 48 because we assume that Indian economic history starts from 51 when elections were conducted. 51 के बाद से there have been only 3 events. That definitely did not happen between 5 and 15, but that definitely happened between. Then the statement would have been wrong. But here, if negative growth rate did not happen, this statement would be. Is it clear? Why this question seems to be tricky because one is talking about growth percentage, the other is talking about absolute numbers. So this is clearly incorrect, but you can't follow the same logic here. तो तभी हो सकता है जब negative है. So definitely 7 to 6.5 आया होगा growth, but number terms में तो it has increased. Percentage is small, but still number wise it has increased. Therefore this statement is it has steadily increased, and numbers will show you that it's steadily increased. This is why the answer here is. Is it clear? Two things which we learned from this question is you need to understand the difference between growth percentage and nominal GDP. And second, whenever there is a trend-based question, you need to find the abnormal year, then try to solve the question because you won't be able to solve it through facts. Definitely you'll have the facts, but it's very difficult to solve this. So this is your fact-based, how exactly the growth slowed down. 14, there is, you see 2008, 3.9%. This is the growth slowdown, the steadily increase नहीं हुआ है. 6 to 8% के बीच में एक growth here is 3%. Understanding the nominal and real GDP or growth percentage there. The substitution of steel for wooden plows in agriculture production is an example of. For any production process, what are the major two factors you need?
दोस्तों, क्या आप भी एक कंटेनर से दूसरे कंटेनर में फ्यूल या फिर ऑयल को ट्रांसफर करने के लिए काफी ज्यादा स्ट्रगल करते?
What are the factors of production? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Major two factors of production which define your efficiency is labor and capital. The more capital goods you have, the efficiency of production increases. That means when you substitute from wooden to steel. This is what the question is asking. That means first you have some sort of capital intensity increasing. Capital augmenting progress means that if I increase my capital intensity by 1%, the efficiency also increases by 1%. So when I invest from wooden to steel, am I investing more money? And will that money give me more productivity? This is nothing but technological progress. Though there are theories which explain both capital augmenting and labor augmenting, we don't have to go beyond. We don't have to understand that. We just have a basic question. You don't need any technical knowledge. Simple है कि capital में कुछ change हो रहा है. Labor better काम कर पाएगा जब capital में कुछ change हुआ. So next time when I have to invest, my investment would go down because my efficiency. This is what is capital augmenting technology. Is this clear? You can't learn or you can't understand this from any particular book. ये on the book paper में ही दिमाग लगाना होगा. Factor of production दो हैं and हमने capital में कुछ change किया है. So it doesn't have to do with labor augmentation. It has mostly capital augmentation or capital. And since I'm investing more capital to get more efficiency, it is capital augmentation. Is it clear? You can't read this in the book. You have to solve it in the exam. An increase in absolute and per capita real GNP do not connote a higher level of economic development if. There is a difference between, or does GDP measure development? We have two concepts. One is the concept of growth. What do we mean by growth? What is meaning of growth? Total output increasing. Rate of increase of output is growth. That means whatever output I am producing, that output is, and how do I measure output? Through GDP. There are various other variables apart from GDP that could be. All of these are measuring output only. The other concept is economic development. How is growth different from development? Quantity और quality का मतलब क्या होता है? That cannot be measured. This is definition of something that cannot be measured. Human development is measured through Human Development Index. What is the difference between output and development? What multiple factors? For example, if we say that GDP of India is this much, we can't say India is developed. When do we say particular country is developed? Social, political. Okay. If you say social, political, along with economic, okay, anything else? Standard. What is standard of living? Standard of living का मतलब क्या होता है? वो तो अलग चीज है. Standard of living is mostly coming from your output only. जितनी इनकम होगी उतने गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज होंगे, उतनी स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग होगी. So that's mostly related to growth. What's development? Yes, one of the factors is definitely if your growth is increasing, that is output is increasing, that means income will be generated. But do we know how this income is distributed? So one of the aspects of development is that it talks about distribution of income. You might have 1% of the whole population taking all of the growth, 99% not getting anything. So we definitely can say growth happened, but the country is not developed because income distribution is not equitable. This is one of the factors. There are multiple other factors also for development. Now, if this is the case, then growth says increase in income, but development says it's not just increase in income, it is also about distribution of income. Right? This is what the question is asking. Question is saying an increase in absolute and per capita real GDP do not connote a higher development if. That means output of the country is increasing, but the country is not a developed country. Output is increasing, but it does not connote a higher level of development. Why? This is what the question is saying. So this question is basically asking you the difference between growth and development. Industrial output fails to keep with agriculture output. That industrial output is not increasing as agriculture output, not directly related. Agriculture output fails to keep with industrial output. Poverty and unemployment increase. Imports grow faster than exports. Out of the four, which is the most appropriate option? Distribution aspect. Income is increasing, but it is not increasing for everyone. This is what it means, poverty and unemployment. Though this option also makes some sense because development is also related to structure of economy. An economy is said to be developed if its contribution comes from higher technology areas or higher productivity areas. What are the higher productivity areas in any economy? It's industry and
क्या 2024 भी वैसे ही निकल गया जैसे पिछला साल गया था? प्रमोशन के लिए ट्राई किया पर सफलता नहीं मिली.
your economy is mostly based on agriculture, it will not be considered as a developed economy. Why? Example, India में 45% of the people are in agriculture. That is not considered as a good thing. Why? Because the problem with agriculture is agriculture's productivity is low. You cannot increase efficiency beyond a point. That means the maximum income increase that will happen in agriculture is fixed. You can't go beyond an income because you can't increase its productivity. But in industrial services, you don't have that limitation. Some industrial sectors do have, but services में there's no limitation. So जितनी productivity बढ़ती जाएगी, उतनी income बढ़ेगी. This is why we say if production is coming mostly from industry and service, that country can said to be more developed. But if it is coming from agriculture, it is not developed. But this statement is not conclusive because it does not mention about the more appropriate distributional aspect. It's not about structure of the economy. Though development has one feature, that what exactly is structure. Yes. What is the statement saying? Increase in absolute and real GDP do not. So ये first part क्या है? When increase in GNP happens, what is increase in GNP? Whether it is absolute or per capita. Per capita is total divided by population. तो increase in GNP का क्या मतलब होता है? Growth, not development, growth. Economic growth is change in GDP, change in output. Does not mean development. So it's asking me the difference between growth and development. GDP or GNP though it's similar. Output measurement can happen when I'm measuring the national product, that is GNP. When I'm measuring the domestic product, that is GDP. Both variables are measuring output. But fact you can't the third definition of development changed, but you talked about capability, human development. 1990 mein it said it's not just about economics, whether all of the this is how the definition of development has changed over a year. And this is 1990 also, where development also has a component for sustainability. It's not just about your development, it is also about future development. You can't take away the development of the future generation. You cannot use everything. Because what is GDP? GDP is counting production. Subsidy to farmer is aiding in production. जो चीज 15 की बननी थी 5 रुपए हमने फार्मर को दे के आप बनाए, तो उसने 10 लगाए तो मैंने 10 काउंट किए, तो 5 जो मैंने दिए वो भी तो काउंट होगी. A transfer payment is not aiding to production. So if you have given a scholarship or an allowance, there is no production activity. जब वो कि growth and development. Another interesting question. Despite being a high saving economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in output. Meaning of capital formation. What is capital formation? What is capital formation? So what future में productivity बढ़ाए, that means addition to capital. How does that addition to capital happen? Investment. That means the savings in the economy have to be converted into, if you want to have certain amount of investment, that is creation of asset, that means the total consumption you make, out of that consumption you will have to sacrifice some part of today's consumption for future. When you do this, you are allowing investment. So whatever investment happens from the savings, this conversion of savings in investment is what called as capital formation. Now the question is saying high saving economy hai, capital formation is happening, but this capital formation, when investment is happening, my output is not increasing. So it's a high saving economy. That means savings are being converted into investment. But this process of capital formation is not leading to output increase. Now, why is the output not increasing? Why I am spending too much money, but I am not able to produce anything. This is understood from a variable which we call as capital output. That how much capital or investment is required to generate an output of 1 unit. That one country has a capital output ratio of 5, the other country has a capital ratio of 10. What do we mean by this? एक को तो 5,000 लग रहे हैं एक यूनिट बनाने में, दूसरे को 10,000 लग रहे हैं. What do we mean by this? A country has an ICOR of 5, that means one is using 5 units of capital to produce 1 unit of output. Country B is using 10 units of capital to produce 1 unit of output. Now why can this happen, or why will this happen? One reason could be that this country is not using the capital efficiently. They are wasting capital. Now why are they wasting capital? They do not have, their government administration is not effective. बहुत डिले होता है, काम लेट होता है, तो डिले से पैसे कॉस्ट बढ़ जाता है. What could be the other reason? This is ease of doing business, government. What could be the other reason? The other reason of this could be that the project in which they are investing is different. One has established a software plant, the other is investing in steel. The nature of the project is such that capital required would be more. The nature of the product is such that the capital required is less. So a higher capital output ratio is not necessarily showing poor efficiency, but also depicting the nature of the project. दोनों reason की वजह से I-COR could be high. Question is saying if this is happening but this is not happening, that means definitely COR would be high. COR high क्यों है उसके दोनों reason हो सकते हैं, but COR would be high. Weak administrative machinery, can this be the reason? Yes. Illiteracy, can this be the reason? Skill नहीं है लोगों के पास. High population density. Many number of people, I have to create more. Capital required is more. High capital output ratio. All of the three means this. Capital output ratio high क्यों हुई? Because यही सब चीजें थी. So which is the most appropriate option? Now what this option shows is always read the options completely. Do not just read the first and think this is correct. Read all because this explains all the three. So out of the four, most appropriate is okay. Savings to investment तो हो रहा है, but investment से output नहीं हो रहा because value ज़्यादा है. Too much capital being invested, output बढ़ ही नहीं रहा है.
मास्टर्स अब्रॉड के लिए लोन चाहिए था, हेडेक नहीं. I'm just so tired with the confusion.
Either I'm throwing away the money or I'm invested in a project which takes money. For example, I started with 1,000 crore, steel unit production 0. I had to add 1,000 more, steel production still 0. वो 10,000 पहुंचा तब steel का पहला unit आया. That means nature of the project is such that the core value was very high. This clear? All the three explain the first poor efficiency. Understanding the basic terms. What do you mean by capital formation and then what do you mean by capital output ratio? Which of the following activities constitute real sector in the economy? What is real sector? What is the real sector? Any particular economy based on the functions it performs or the activities it does, it is divided into three sectors. So when you understand growth, we started this as the starting point. Based on functions, one is the government sector. अब ये चीज सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट ही करती है. What happens with the government sector? What is the role of government in the economy? The role of the government is administration. The role of the government is administration is law and order is part of administration. Is redistribution, and the third is providing non-marketable goods and services, that is public goods. एक सेक्टर है, ये तीनों फंक्शन और कोई नहीं कर सकता. Nobody can provide all this, and for doing this, the government will collect a. This is alone the government does it. Then another function is the function of production, which is called as the real sector. Production and consumption activity are done in the real sector. This is what is done by mostly households, non-financial firms, and non-profit organizations serving the household. These are the three major players here. One is the government function, the other is the function of production of goods and services and consumption of the same. These three do this. Household, non-financial firms, and non-profit serving the households. Non-profit serving the household, for example, charitable organizations, which produce goods or produce services, but give it for lesser cost, but production happens. Now, whatever function the government and real sector do, they also have to engage in another function, that is the function of distribution or the function of exchange. जो good produce हुए हैं वो exchange भी करने हैं. Now, what happened when these two functions were only existing in the economy? Barter economy, there were significant issues. Goods जब exchange हुए या tax भी barter पे pay करने लगे, there was a significant issue. So to improve the distribution or exchange function, a third function was introduced in the economy, which is called as the financial function. This is the sector which is dealing with Why this is not called real? Because money is not something which is real. Money is what you created and gave value in order to help these two sectors. Money कुछ exist नहीं करता है economy में. This is not real. This is something which you created so that you could perform the function of distribution and exchange. What is the meaning of money? The 100 rupee note which you have, what is the meaning of that? Money represents a claim on goods and services. That means money is only a unit which is helping me represent my claim on good service is nothing but my representation of value. That this good is 100 rupees worth. तो वो value ही तो बता रहा है उसकी. This is one of the functions of money, right? So financial sector is something which deals with money, which helps in distribution and exchange. Along with money, it also deals in financial securities. What is a financial security? For example, debt or a bond or a share. What is it? What does the meaning of a bond? Bond represents a debt claim from one person to another. What is share? It represents ownership claim. That means financial security is nothing but representing a claim on money. एक बार debt money है और एक बार ownership money है. Anything that deals with money or financial security is nothing but a financial sector. Insurance, pension, all are dealing with money or claims on money. So my economy can be divided into government, real and financial. Is it clear? Functional differentiation है. This sector was created to help here.
नया साल, नई शुरुआत, पर क्या आप 2025 में वही पुरानी मिस्टेक्स रिपीट करते रहेंगे? जिंदगी में हर
Now if a farmer is harvesting crop, is it a government function? Real? Why? Because it is dealing in textiles, converting raw cotton into fabrics. Production, commercial bank lending money. This is financial. This is nothing real. Money is not real. This is financial. Corporate body issuing bonds. The first two are. So when we start with the explanation of how the economy works, the circular flow, we understand the differentiation. कि production consumption तो एक हो जाता, but वो distribute income नहीं कर पाए. उनको एक sector चाहिए था, that was financial. Though they can do distribution, but it is very difficult to do. This is why they introduced the financial sector, which is something which is not real. Production is always real. Financial is not. Answer is 1 and 2. A very basic question. With reference to physical capital, consider the following way. This is this year. What do you understand by capital? The general definition. There are 4 factors of production. That particular knowledge can help you solve this question. You don't need to know the difference between fixed and working. What is the meaning of capital in factor of production capital? Investment. What is that? Capital means investment. Capital is asset formation, but asset का मतलब क्या होता है? Asset. What is the definition of asset? Something which gives a future use. Asset is something which gives a future use. Capital is an asset which is used in production but not consumed in the process. This is what is the meaning of capital goods. Physical capital इसी को बोलते हैं. Used in production but not consumed. Future use तभी देगा अगर consume नहीं हो रहा. Now, if I go into this definition of fixed and working, fixed capital definitely would be this. Fixed, as the name suggests, fixed. So let us understand fixed only. A computer would be working capital or a fixed capital. Farmer's plow would be working or fixed. Understanding the meaning difference, just the meaning of the term. Can it be working or fixed? How? Why it is not fixed? Forget what is working. Why it is not fixed? Can you negate that plow is a fixed capital? What is fixed capital? It is used in production but not consumed. That means you can use it again and again. तो अब इसी definition से वो fixed क्यों नहीं है? I'm not saying why it is working or not. I'm asking why. It is not fixed. Second, depreciation. So again, if depreciation happens, why it is not fixed? Asset fixed होगा तभी depreciation होगी. What is what mean? मतलब 4 machine है, main machine fixed है. Do you have any factor to negate that farmer's plow is not a fixed asset or a fixed capital? Efficiency of plow, how it can vary? That can vary of the computer also. i5 processor and i3 processor. Efficiency can vary. Is the definition of capital dependent on efficiency? Working means something which is used for consumption purposes. For example, electricity आपने use की. You've used it, but you've consumed it. So working purposes के लिए जो capital asset आप use कर रहे हो, that is mostly your working capital. Plow is never a working capital, it always is. So you just go by fixed only. This option is incorrect, this option is right. Now using the same yarn used by the weaver. Working capital because yarn would be consumed. So this is not fixed. Petrol. Okay. So understand, you just needed to know the meaning of fixed asset, which we do when we do factors of production. तो बहुत दिमाग लगाना ही नहीं है यहाँ पे. Answer is हाँ, डे टू डे यूज में यान भी हो गया, पेट्रोल भी हो गया, तो वो कंज्यूम नहीं हो रहा ना, ये दोनों तो कंज्यूम होंगे. Working capital is my day-to-day requirements are being fulfilled. So that means whatever money I've kept for these day-to-day consumption requirement is being fulfilled here. So they will be consumed. Fixed is not consumed. As the name suggests, so fixed here. Don't have to read anything here. You just need to know the meaning of capital, and this would be.
Hi. Ever wished you could finish a book in a matter of minutes and remember?
I hate tricky question now. Sectors of economy. You can see class 6 information they use and make a very tricky question. Now, how do we define the various sectors of the economy? Primary, secondary, tertiary, then quaternary and quinary. Right? What is the primary sector? No, agriculture, but uska, why agriculture in primary? Because primary talks about natural raw material. When this natural raw material can be further processed, this becomes secondary. Then what is tertiary? Services which improve the efficiency of primary, and this is tertiary sector. And tertiary sector can have 3 types of services, can be 3 types. And what are the most basic services? In dono, yes, transportation, storage, all of those would be tertiary. But if something is helping you improve the process, innovation in any of this, information innovation based is this is your information based services which can help you improve efficiency. Basic processes tertiary and quinary The gold collared decision makers, administrators, decision makers. This is what is the highest level of service. Public administration services is quinary services. Storage of agriculture produce, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, quinary. How? Storage. Storage is a service or a process? Is it here or is it secondary? Is it clear? It's not secondary. Pre-farm. Primary. Mineral exploration. This is what the confusion there is. If we are only talking about extraction, that is mining, it is definitely primary. And if we are talking about exploration in terms of research and development, then it is secondary. यही थोड़ा सा इसमें confusion है that exploration they are talking about R&D services or the mining services. So it's either primary or it is quaternary, but it is definitely not tertiary. It's either primary or quaternary depending on what interpretation they take. Sometimes UPSC interpretation can vary. Our interpretation, if it talks about research and development, it's quaternary, or if it is talking about mining, then it is. It's definitely not tertiary. Weaving cloth, because we are dealing in processing, that means it is. Answer would be. Is it clear? This is why sometimes it is said read the class 6th NCERT. ये basics ही नहीं पता primary, secondary and tertiary. A lot of students make this confusion or had a doubt because they thought maximum यहीं तक होता है. Don't know about quaternary and quinary. Services का distinction is these three. In fact, what if we say services in India? What do we mean by services? There are three major sectors in India: agriculture, allied, industry, and services. What do we mean by services? We say growth of services was 8%. 55% of India's GDP come from services. What do we mean by services there? You see how they have defined, or they have taken all three there, all three types of activity. Services in India comprises of telecom services of broadcasting and communication. This is one level of service. Another service is professional and financial services. Then you have all types of services that are being included. NCERT में तो ये detail मिलेगा, primary, tertiary. This is the detail given in NCERT के which activities where. This is mostly which is covered in newspaper survey and everything. Just example इसमें और IT sector भी है. So how you can solve the question based on understanding. See, this is what is the sector of the economy: resource based in extraction, natural raw material, manufacturing, processing, service based activities, the basic ones, knowledge based activity. ये तीनों service sector है, tertiary, quaternary and quinary. All of the three are. The next is money supply, money and money supply. Is it clear how GDP based questions? You've seen how basic they were. No technicality required. You only need to know how production happens in the economy, who does what is the meaning of growth and development. There are no technicalities involved whatsoever. कि GDP में क्या add हो रहा है और क्या add नहीं हो रहा है. Second is the money sector. With reference to bitcoins, consider the following statements. What do you understand by bitcoins? Everyone has heard this name.
तारीख पक्की कर ले. अब तो करा इसी 30 कर ली. गजब. तो 30 ठीक है. फाइनल. ऐसे कैसे ठीक है? मुंह उठा के कह दिया 30 ठीक है. अच्छा 30 ठीक है. मुंह उठा के बोल दिया ठीक है. बस आज की रात है हमारे पास तो क्लिक. कल तो तुम हमारी धर्मपत्नी बन जाओगी.
चलिए हल्दी लगवाइए बैठ के।
कैसे समय लग गई आप?
आज हल्दी की रस्म है।
हल्दी हो तो गई, अब क्या मरीनेट कर दोगी? मम्मी सबका टाइम नहीं, 8 घंटे बारात है, चलो।
आज 29 है, कल 30 है, कल की है बारात।
चलिए हल्दी लगवाइए बैठिए।
तारीख क्या है आज?
हाँ, तो 29 है आज हल्दी की रस्म है।
फिर से हल्दी हो रही है, फिर से। 29 की रात को सोते हैं, जब सुबह उठते हैं तो वापस 29 होती है।
ये सब बकैती सुनने आए वो अपनी मेहंदी छोड़ के।
तो मेहंदी है, ऐसा कौन सा टट्टी करी थी जो आधे में छोड़ के आ गई?
छी।
What can be made from nothing?
Cryptocurrency, what's the difference between this type of currency and the normal currency? Why was this introduced? What's the concept? Because centralized currencies have a problem that your value might be lost. If you print more, your value gets lost. This is why decentralized, no control of anyone. This is the only fact which you have to know here. Bitcoins are tracked by central banks. Uska reason of being is that it should not be controlled. It is not centralized. So one statement is not correct. Automatically you eliminate A and if you know the reason of why Bitcoins, you have 2 and 3 and 3. That means you don't have even have to read the third statement correctly. You only have to decide on second. Anyone with a Bitcoin address can send and receive Bitcoins from anywhere else with a Bitcoin address. Now read this statement again. Does it make sense when you correct it? You only have to decide bottom controlled. In fact, but note that your value might be lost. If you print more, your value gets lost. This is why decentralized, no control of anyone. This is the only fact which you have to know here. Bitcoins are tracked by central banks. Uska reason of being is that it should not be controlled. It is not centralized. So one statement is not correct. Automatically you eliminate A and if you know the reason of why Bitcoins, you have 2 and 3 and 3. That means you don't have even have to read the third statement correctly. You only have to decide on second. Anyone with a Bitcoin address can send and receive Bitcoins from anywhere else with a Bitcoin address. Now read this statement again. Does it make sense? अगर बिटकॉइन में ट्रेड करना है तो ऐसे ही तो ट्रेड होगा. You need an account to trade from one Bitcoin address to another Bitcoin address. It's not even testing anything. इसके अलावा और क्या तरीका हो सकता है बिटकॉइन करने का? Just a generic statement written which doesn't have a meaning is just trying to impose a lot of English just to make you confused with what technique. One Bitcoin address with another. So this statement is correct. The answer here would be so how do you need to register somewhere to buy Bitcoins? So anyone, why do you think anyone is now? Anyone can participate. Uska kaam hi hai ki it's not controlled. You will distribute it. You can trade in Bitcoins if you want to accept your salaries in Bitcoins. You can control. Will also work it out on entity. Do you business? You look for what step? There you did not think one. What? So the taxation is movement from one to another. It might be tracked. They can, they cannot. जरूरी थोड़ी ऐसे तो अपने ही इनकम को कैसे ट्रैक कर लेते हैं वो? Can they track all of the transactions that are happening? So black money transactions, this is something beyond the income tax. This is why it is not black money. So tracking हो पाएगी इसका मतलब थोड़ी क्या central bank will have control. Question talked about central bank in general, is specific. This is what you don't have to understand the technicalities involved. Basics से हो जाएगा. Which of the following statement correctly describes the meaning of legal tender money? What do you mean by legal tender? So if you read about the money chapter, class 12 NCERT, money evolution happened from coins to. Why did people trust coins? Because coins had intrinsic value. Trust started eroding when I started reducing intrinsic value. This is something which we call as depreciation. आप coin में content कम करते जाओ metal का, people will lose trust. Shifted to paper because of a lot of inconvenience with coins. Now, why will people trust paper currency? At any currency has a meaning. Any particular thing to be used as money or currency, it has to perform three functions. What functions can help you make the अटर में exchange मुश्किल था, exchange होना चाहिए. Second, it should be a unit of account. That means it should help measure value. And third, it should help store value. Now all of the three functions can happen through number of units. Bitcoin से भी हो सकता है. But why Bitcoin is not accepted but your paper currency is accepted? Because all of the three do not work until and unless you have trust. So Bitcoin में भी you can exchange. This is the most important factor. Any particular unit can perform these functions, but if you don't have trust, it will not function as currency. If the other person refuses to accept your payment, the money function is gone. फिर तो exchange ही नहीं हो पाएगा. Now trust is the major factor. Who creates the trust in paper? It is the
Guys, wait. Important message. First of all, I'm Rory Reed, and you're watching Auto Trader. Here's why you need to subscribe. It's very simple.
and this concept is called as, by law, you have to accept this form of payment. So whenever you make an exchange or you have an obligation on someone, you can settle that obligation through this form of currency. Government ने legal tender acceptance could be coins maximum of 1,000 rupees की payment कर. But when it is in the form of notes, it is. But why do you do that? Because it is the government. The money which a creditor is under trust is created by the government because that form of money is legal tender. This is the most.
मेरे 24 साल के नॉलेज एक्सपीरियंस ने मुझे सिखाया है कि दुनिया में 80% लोग गलत प्रोफेशन
contract has been signed, and if you'd like to sign it, Mr. Undertaker, you may have the match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
क्या आपके एमएस ऑफिस सॉफ्टवेयर के अंदर ये वाला ऑप्शन है? यहाँ से देखो, इसे कहते हैं को-पायलट। मैं गारंटी के साथ बोलूँ।
So hey guys, finally Danny Clark Luanga has started his arm wrestling training after his World Arm Wrestling Championship. And ये ट्रेनिंग इसीलिए इम्पोर्टेंट है बिकॉज उन्होंने अपने बॉक्स कंपटीशन के बाद ये पहला वीडियो आउट किया है अपने इंस्टाग्राम चैनल पे जहाँ पे वो प्रॉपर तरीके से आर्म रेसलिंग वर्कआउट करते हुए नजर आ रहे हैं। और यहाँ पे जैसे कि हम देख सकते हैं कि वो बहुत ज़्यादा हैवी बैक मशीन का वर्कआउट कर रहे हैं और अगर हम गैस करें कि वो कितना वेट उठा रहे हैं तो मेरे ख्याल से बिकॉज यहाँ पे 6 प्लेट्स मैं जैसे कि देख पा रहा हूँ और अगर एक प्लेट 10 किलो या 12.5 किलो का भी हो तो लगभग 60 to 75 kg का वो जो है बैक प्रेशर कर रहे हैं बिकॉज यहाँ पे प्लेट का जो है साइज भी बहुत बड़ा है, तो मिनिमम 10 किलो तो होगा ही। अगर 10 किलो भी हुआ तो 60 किलो तक का वो जो है बैक प्रेशर कर।
वो स्क्रिप्ट पूरी देखिए, उसमें एक दो जगह पे इम्प्रोवाइज था, जैसे अक्षय कुमार मोबाइल चुराता है और जाके वो सामने वाली दुकान पे देखता है। ये सीन जो यहाँ से उसने पिकअप किया, तो वो दुकान पर थे, तो दुकान से वापस आए, उसने भी कुछ इम्प्रोवाइज करना था। तो ये कैरेक्टर अतरंगी है ना, कुछ भी बोलते हैं, मैं कुछ भी बोलता हूँ यार। लगता है कल मसाला डोसा खाया ना, मेरा कान बंद हो गया है। तो मसाला डोसा को कहाँ के लोग कोई लेना देना तो होता है ना, कई बार कुछ भी बोल दो तो चल जाता है। अदरवाइज द होल स्क्रिप्ट ऑफ रावटी डाटा रिटर्न, उसमें ज्यादा इम्प्रोवाइजेशन नहीं था। कितना लिखा
disconnected.